Sometimes we need to slow it down, take a look around and breathe. 'Cause these times go by so very fast, moments never last. Just breathe, breathe in, breathe out. Quiet, be still, don't shout. Love is what it's all about. Breathe. Sometimes when you feel you've had enough, living is just too tough. Just breathe. 'Cause you'll regret when these days are past. Friend, just seen your last. Just breathe. Breathe in, breathe out. Quiet, be still, don't shout. Love is what it's all about. Just breathe. Love is what it's all about. Be quiet and still don't shout. Just breathe. Just love. Just love. Just love.
Hello?
Sorry, I had my mute on. Welcome to the Just Love Show. I just did this marvelous open that nobody heard. Welcome to the Just Love Show. It's a beautiful night here in Northern California. I'm blessed to have you guys with us. As we do every show, take a deep breath, sit back, and think about all the things you have abundance for, like, say, a mute on your phone and your computer that stops you from hearing people. Or people from hearing you. As we do every show, before we get into the show, I'm going to read a little something that I wrote. One of the things that I've been writing over the past 5 years without fail every day, just reminding people how important it is that we move ourselves from a foundation to one of love. And if you don't feel comfortable with the word love, or love just doesn't grab you, then call it whatever you want, but we have to stop being afraid. We've been working from this broken foundation for literally millenniums. You don't have to be Nostradamus to see where this is going to take us. Everything that we do on top of this broken foundation, any systems we put in place, whether they're economic, religious, business, medical, you name it, they collapse because we're operating on this broken foundation. This broken foundation, unless we change it, any good works we do on the surface, any systems we put in place, it's just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. So anyway, this is one of the things I've been writing over the past few years that I think fits the show tonight. Love is erupting like a long, dormant spiritual volcano, and it can't be stopped. It is changing the face of everything, and now nothing will ever again be the same. Returned from illusion to truth, the love revolution has begun. All existing paradigms are shifting or being rendered irrelevant to the new collective consciousness that is emerging. And then this is a quote from Buckminster Fuller. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And I couldn't think of a better quote to introduce my guest with, because that's exactly what he and his organization are doing. my guest tonight is Justin Renfro from Kiva Zip, and I think his bio that he sent me it's so cool. It's so succinct and right to the point, and tells you a lot about who Justin is and who what their program's about. Justin Renfro is the program manager for Kiva Zip program in the United States, and over the past 3 years, through Kiva, he's supported the growth and impact of Kiva Zip to thousands of entrepreneurs around the U.S. With the mantra of "Stay positive," Justin prides himself on being a good person and a force of good in the world. I think we should all make that our mantra. I think that is an incredibly powerful mantra to have, and we should all try to be a force of good in the world. I got to know Kiva Zip. Actually, an attorney friend of mine, Natalia Thurston, told me about it when a business partner of mine had started a public market in downtown Vallejo. And we started the public market because all of Solano County and in the Vallejo surrounding area is considered a food desert. And in downtown Vallejo, which was also the first major American city to go bankrupt, there just were no good food options. And I've had a background of working in local and sustainable agriculture and foods and business for about 15 years now. So we went ahead and opened with our own money and energies, refurbished this over 100-year-old building in downtown Vallejo. I called in a lot of favors I knew from farmers market vendors that I've got to know over the years. And we opened this market to great fanfare. The challenge was that there wasn't a lot of money in downtown Vallejo. So this is where Kiva Zip came in. They helped us really do some things that gave us the best opportunity to succeed by getting us a loan at a very timely juncture in the business that we were trying to do, and kept us going for a little bit longer than we probably would have. And I can't thank them enough for helping us feed people for a short time some good food in downtown Vallejo. Unfortunately, the business didn't work out, but we still made sure that Kiva got paid back every dime of their zero interest loan because their program won't work without it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my friend, Justin Renfro from Kiva Zip.
Hey, Kip. How are you?
Hey, Justin. Thank you for joining me tonight. Before we get into everything that Kiva Zip does and how it came about, tell us about yourself. What's your background? How did you become this stay positive person that wants to be a force of good in the world?
Yeah, totally. I grew up in Los Angeles and went to school out in Arizona. And when I was in Arizona, I was an entrepreneurship major. And through that entrepreneurship program, I got really, really interested in technology. And, we built this big business plan. We were pitching to investors on the calendar application where you could go find concerts and local stuff in your local community. And I just became obsessed with technology. And that's what I wanted to do with my life. I just totally believed in the power of technology to change the world. And ended up starting my career at LinkedIn. I got an entry-level sales job at LinkedIn, and that was a really awesome experience. I was working in San Francisco. I was brand new out of college. I got my first paycheck. It was super, super fun. But after about a year and a half, in the sales world, we call it the sales grind, kind of wore me out. And I was thinking about it, and I said, this stuff is cool. I like LinkedIn. I like what they're doing, but I'm not really making an impact in the world. I'm just calling recruiters and asking them to buy LinkedIn. So I actually quit my job kind of out of nowhere with no idea of what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to do something more meaningful and more fulfilling. And when I was at LinkedIn, the founder of LinkedIn, he's a big guy in Silicon Valley. His name is Reid Hoffman, and he gave $1 million to Kiva so that he could sign up 40,000 new lenders to Kiva's overall lending pool. And he promoted this out to all the LinkedIn staff, and I started doing my research, and I said, Kiva's got a pretty interesting model. microloans at 0% interest to support entrepreneurs in Bangladesh and Uganda and Brazil and the United States. And that sounded really, really powerful to me, and kind of molding my idea of I love technology into this social good and this socially impactful spectrum. I had the opportunity to come and actually work as an intern on the Kiva Zip team. At the time, it was very, very small. We had really not really gotten it off the ground at all, and they were looking for someone to just come in and figure out how we could support entrepreneurs in the United States, just like Kiva was doing for entrepreneurs around the world. And over the past 3 years, I've been at Kiva just working really hard to help people. And it's an awesome place to be, because I'm working 50, 60, 70 hours a week to just help people, and helping people feels really, really good. And this whole idea of stay positive, it actually started in college. A good friend of mine passed away. He had kind of a freak medical accident where he had a heart attack in the middle of his sleep. And I was at his funeral, and everyone was saying he was so positive. He was so positive. That was just the recurring thing from every single person that was speaking at his funeral. And I took a lot from that and said, if I passed away today, I don't know how many people would say I'm positive. So I kind of took that, and me and a tight group of friends that were close with this guy started this organization, Stay Positive International, and we started tagging up the school and making sweatshirts and making sunglasses and just promoting this positive vibe. And it's really become who I am internally. It is my inner being. Is just this positive force in the world, and it influences, who I'm friends with, who I communicate with, it kind of draws positive people to me, and I feel like I'm in this kind of whirlwind, this hurricane of positivity, and that's just what, the type of environment I like to be in, and it's very aligned with the work that Kiva does around the world. So I guess you could say it's just generally a good fit for me and what I do and what I'm all about.
I wish more people could understand a couple things that you just said, and I think they're worth really putting an exclamation point on. How good it feels to help people. There are very few things that make me as happy or feel as fulfilled as, and it doesn't have to be a grand gesture, but when you help someone, it just fills you up in a way that I personally don't even really have words to describe it, except to say that I feel complete. I feel like I am fulfilling a purpose. And the other thing is, you've got the stay positive thing, and you find that positivity collects to you. I found the same thing when I started putting the whole Just Love movement together about 6 years ago. At first, when I was doing this, there wasn't, there were people scattered around. Of course, I wasn't the first person believing in the power of love by any stretch of the imagination, but it wasn't as immediate to me as it is now. Now it's everywhere. I just, and maybe it was there before and I just didn't see it because that wasn't the energy I was drawing to me, or maybe the world's changing a little bit, but whatever it is, I do think that by focusing on whether it's love or staying positive, you do draw those things to you. You do manifest the things that you put your intention into.
Yeah, well, I think, two things come to mind there. The first is the law of attraction. You attract people that are like you. And for me, similarly, it's when I was really, it's kind of a forced consciousness where, this positive vibe and this positive energy and this positive spirit that I have, when I was conscious about making that part of my everyday, where, it's macro, but it's also micro, where every single morning I start the day writing about what it was that I loved about the previous day, and focusing on the best moments that are happening on a day-to-day basis. It kind of instills this positive, being, and I feel like people are people are attracted to that. And, naturally, the people that are closest to me also embody that spirit. And people that I don't really get along with don't embody that spirit. So that's where the law of attraction comes in. Is, through consciousness, I'm able to establish this is the person that I am, and it naturally gravitates people to me that, relate and embody that same spirit.
Absolutely. And I've been doing the same thing with the Just Love movement. Every day, without fail, for 6 years, I get up and will write one thing, 10 things, however many things come to me after I meditate in the morning about love. And what I found is not only does the constant focus on that reinforce that in your being and that become who you are, but I also find that outwardly, you find yourself committed. The more you become that, you're committed to living up to what that means. If it's staying positive, then you feel like, wow, I write about this every day. I think about this all the time. I have to stay positive. And for me, it's the same way with love. I have to do the things that love would have me do, because the worst thing for me is feeling like a hypocrite. And I find that by constantly doing the writing, as you are, or as I like to call it, the work, which isn't a bad thing. A lot of people have made work a four-letter word, but to do these things in the world that we live in, it takes work. It takes work to stay positive and stay focused. And I totally agree with what you're saying, that you have to do this work to reinforce these beliefs that you have. And if you don't, you can real quickly fall back into forgetting.
Yeah, totally. And I think for me, one of the biggest kind of indicators into all of this is I make T-shirts and sweatshirts that say "Stay Positive," and when I would say probably 5 days a week, I'm wearing something that says "Stay Positive." And when I'm biking to work, when I'm walking to work, when I'm walking around town, I can see people reading my sweatshirt and then looking at me and smiling. And that's that. It's such a small thing, but it gives me that instant sense of gratification. And this is my brand. This is who I am. And strangers, whether it be someone I don't know that's walking past me on the street, or the person that's closest to me, they see that and they feel that, and I can, there's this kind of fourth dimension aspect of that I find addictive. I feel this. I think addictive is a really good word to use, because I also think there's a component of the writing and doing the work that once your addictive brain kicks in after 12 days of doing something repetitively, it does feel like an addiction. You start to feel really bad if you don't do it. At least I do. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't do my love thing today. Yeah, totally. That's how I feel when I don't write. So not to get, and again, before we get, I did have one question I wanted to run by you. You talked about technology and how you were drawn to it and how it could save the world. Or help save the world. I learned how to write binary code in high school, and then I got away from technology for a long time. In fact, growing up on a farm, I really considered myself sort of a Luddite for a long time. And my visualization for technology, as I got more involved in it, was that it would ultimately be a tool so we could visualize our own internal technologies and learn how to better manage our own internal health by being able to visualize, well, if I can bend my fingers and blink and close my eyes, I should be able to do this with every cell in my body, and to the point where we start to realize that all of our technology are external manifestations of our own internal innate technologies. And a quote that Tesla had, technology that doesn't help all of humanity really isn't progress. And I'm curious where you see technology going, and how much of it is a positive thing and how much of it we could maybe start to move away from. Well, that's a very deep question, and I don't know if I'm the right person to chime in on this question, but I'll talk about the good and the bad. The good I see is that it connects people, and it connects people that otherwise wouldn't have had any type of connection previously. And you see the good on that on Facebook, you see the good on that on Kiva. And we can get more into, the specifics of that as it relates to Kiva. I think the biggest con of technology is it creates a lot of noise. And that noise isn't always beneficial. It can be a very, very big distraction. For me, being outside and being alone and being absent of technology is where I find my greatest peace. And I feel like, and this is, it's not something I like, but, I'm in front of a computer every single day. I'm being swarmed by, all of these people and companies trying to grab my attention, especially in San Francisco. We are in a world where we're just being bombarded with noise, and technology allows noise to happen. And I think that's by far the biggest con of technology. But if you take it down to its core element, it's about connecting people to people. And I think that's why I think Kiva is such a powerful platform, is I can support this entrepreneur in the Philippines or this entrepreneur in San Francisco that I would have never had any interaction with prior. And that type of connection, if I can help this person be more successful and find their dream and fuel their ambitions, that's super productive and super, super awesome for the world. And the way in which Kiva is doing it, with the loans just going over and over and over again, it's really, really powerful stuff. And you can see it in a lot of different areas, the power of technology to create massive impact locally and globally.
Now you mentioned that Kiva had started overseas, and I'm at your Stay Positive page right now, and I see that you've traveled all over the place, and I'm only slightly green with envy right now at some of the places I see you have pictures from. So tell us how it started, why it started overseas, and then how it moved back here, and a little bit of the philosophy behind the business philosophy behind it.
Yeah, totally. So Kiva started, our co-founders, when one of them was working at TiVo, one of them was working for a nonprofit, and they both decided to take a trip. There's this, I think it's like a global health cruise where they go around to different ports around Africa or Southeast Asia, and they provide medical services to people. And one of the stops was in Uganda, and they were in Uganda, and our co-founder, Matt, was talking to a local farmer in Uganda, and she was talking about how she needed $50 to buy this thing that was going to totally change, totally transform her farm. And Matt said, I bet there are so many people like this around the world, and I could easily spare $50. But me giving $50 to this person makes such a small impact. Like, there's got to be a way to do this at scale. And when he got back from that trip, while he was working at TiVo, he was, building the Kiva website. And he found a few organizations in Uganda that supported the local economic or local entrepreneurs. And he actually raised money from his wedding to support a ton of entrepreneurs in Uganda. And it worked. The money was raised. The money was sent to this microfinance institution in Uganda, and the money, started recycling. Money would be lent to a farmer in Uganda. It would be repaid, and then it would be re-lent out to another farmer. So he started building out relationships with different microfinance institutions throughout Africa. Built this website where anybody could come to the Kiva website back in 2005 and start making loans to people in Africa. and these are $25, $50. We're not talking big loans. We're talking small loans here, to support the, local entrepreneurs. And in 2009, we were on Oprah, and on Oprah, we had this huge flood of lenders and interest and donors. And, from 2009 on, we've just built up this massive scale where now we're in over 70 countries. We've supported over 1.3 million entrepreneurs around the world. And it's just a beautiful thing. I think if there's one thing to know about the Kiva model, I'll tell the story of $25. So I have $25 in my wallet right now. I can take that $25 in my wallet and lend to a farmer in Uganda, where it all started. So I lend $25 to a farmer in Uganda. He uses that money to buy a goat. And that goat produces milk and cheese, and that entrepreneur is able to raise enough money to pay me back. So I get my $25 back. Then I use that same $25 to support an artisan in the Philippines so she can buy inventory, make more necklaces. She pays me back. Then I move that money to a coffee shop in Detroit. That $25 supports the purchase of a big coffee machine. He pays me back my $25. Then I support another farm in San Francisco. So that $125 that's in my pocket right now has now recycled 4 times to support 4 different entrepreneurs, one in Uganda, one in the Philippines, one in Detroit, and one in San Francisco. That's $125. Now, if you scale that up, we have $650 million that is just cycling over and over and over again from over 1 million people that have $25 in their pocket. So you can look at it as it's a global bank. It's a global revolving loan fund where anybody with $25 can go to the Kiva website and support entrepreneurs and not just give them money, but lend them money that's going to be repaid and recycle that money over and over and over again. And every single week, there's about $3.5 million lent on Kiva that's supporting thousands of entrepreneurs. Now, why we decided to come to the U.S. is we see the same problems in the U.S. that we see abroad. Entrepreneurs struggle to access capital to grow their business. Just as you said, you were opening this food hub in Vallejo, and it was really hard to raise money. And the problem is, especially after 2008, a banker is going to look at your credit score, how much collateral you have, how many years you have in business, what your cash flows look like. It's almost like you give them your social security number, they crank it through some really complicated algorithm, this big computer, and they'll tell you why you don't qualify for a loan. Bill Clinton said, the only people that can get money in this country are the people that don't need it. And I think that's absolutely right. The entrepreneurs at the bottom of our pyramid, they need money to grow, but they don't have the access to it. And that's exactly what we see in the developing world. It's the same thing. It's just at a bigger scale. It's bigger dollar loans here in the United States. And we said, let's take it back to the way it was done for thousands of years. So let's go back to 1915, 100 years ago. You could go get a loan from your local bank based on your reputation, based on your character, based on the relationships that you had in your community. And our whole philosophy is, if you have a community of people that believe in you, if you have 20 people that are willing to lend you $5, then we will lend to you. Our community of lenders around the world will lend to you. So we're not going to look at your credit score, your cash flows, your credits, or your collateral, or how many years you have of experience. We're going to basically say, show that you have your own community of people that believe in you, and then we'll give you access to our global network of over 1 million lenders. So that philosophy around social capital, evaluating an entrepreneur based on the person that they are, their character, their reputation, and their community, is the driving force behind Kiva Zip, and that's the big problem we're solving, because banks aren't lending money and entrepreneurs need access to capital.
Well, and I think you hit exactly on. I think you hit exactly on what I mentioned in with the Buckminster Fuller quote, is to change something, you build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And one of the things I talk a lot about on this show with all my guests, no matter what their background is, their mission is that it's not enough just to talk about doing good things. It's not just enough to say, I'm a spiritual person, I believe in love. You have to give people, if we want to change this existing broken paradigm that we've been operating from for a while now, we have to give people a new place to come to. We have to give them a way that they know they're going to be able to feed their family, put a roof over their head. And you guys are doing that. And it's so impressive to me because you're doing exactly what Buckminster Fuller talked about. You're building a new model that's making the old model obsolete. And you're doing it, as you pointed out, using some very tried and true old methodologies and practices.
Right.
And
Right.
you know, that trustee component, which I want you to elaborate on a little bit more because it's an important part of the program, it really is such an incentive to people. You really, if you have, unlike with, I think it's very easy in our modern culture, for a lot of the reasons you pointed out, to look at banks, to look at corporations and go, you know what, if I don't pay them back, so what? Who cares? They've done this to me. They've taken this. They've charged me this fee. Or they're just this nameless, faceless thing. They've become the enemy to a certain extent. So by making it about your friends and family and then bringing that larger community to the table, it's a really great place to go back to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's all about, it's taking it back to the point where let's evaluate entrepreneurs based on who they are and the community that they have, the community of support that they have, rather than numbers associated with that individual. And if you can scale that, if we can be doing tens of thousands or millions of loans in the United States and around the world using that paradigm, I think that's really powerful.
So let's do this. So because these shows really quickly run out of time. I'm wanting to start. I want to start a flower shop in the Mission. I've got a business plan. I know where my store is going to be. I know where I'm going to get my flowers from. And somebody says, "Hey, have you checked into Kiva Zip? They can help you." How do I start? What do I do?
Yeah, it's really easy. So there's basically 3 steps in the process. The first is you go to our website. It's kivazip.org. or zip.kiva.org. And there's a big tab at the top of our website that says Borrow. And if you click that Borrow button, you can start a loan application and apply for a loan up to $5,000 at 0% interest. And when you fill out a loan application, our review team will check and make sure that you meet our minimum qualifications. And then we will allow you access to start fundraising on our website. And before you get any support from our global community, you have to invite 20 to 25 people from your own community that are willing to support you with $5. If you can prove that you have 20 to 25 people that believe in you, believe in your business, are willing to lend you $5, and they lend you that $5, we will open you up to our global community of lenders, and 95% of the time, you will fully fund your loan on Kiva Zip. So you raise the initial portion from your own community, those 20 to 25 people, and then Kiva's global lending community will come in and support the rest. So that's the process to a T. The other component that you mentioned earlier are trustees. And, the strategy of Kiva and how we've been able to grow across the United States is we've built strategic partnerships with organizations and individuals that recommend entrepreneurs to Kiva Zip that they feel would be a good fit. I'll give you one example. There's this organization called the Greenhorns. And I very much encourage you to look at Severin. She works for the Greenhorns. She'd be a great person to have on your show. The Greenhorns is an organization that supports small local farmers across the United States. And the Greenhorns is a partner of Kiva Zip, and they're able to proactively recommend their entrepreneurs to the program. So there's two ways to get involved. I guess three ways. The first is you can apply for a loan by going to our website and starting a loan application today. The second is you can sign up as a partner on Kiva Zip, and it's not just organizations, it's also individuals. And you can proactively recommend an entrepreneur that you feel would be a good fit for the Kiva Zip program. And the third, and something that everyone that's listening should do, is go to our website and support one of our entrepreneurs with $5, $25, $100. Go out and lend to those awesome small business owners that are raising on our website. But the process of actually signing up for a loan is quite easy. You just have to go to our website.
And let me take a second here. If anyone would like to call in and talk to Justin, has a business idea, and you have any questions about Kiva Zip, feel free to call in at 508-717-8758. Again, 508-717-8758. Back to how this started in Africa and some of the first loans that went out. How are the businesses doing that started there? And also, really reinforce with people, if you could, you're talking about changing people's lives in a country significantly with $25. I don't think that many Americans, obviously we do have more than we should in this country that would understand how much $25 means. But explain how different life is in those countries and in comparison to here, as you said, you're giving out larger loans, and just to paint a picture so people really understand how people live in other parts of the world.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a good example. I was in Kenya a few months ago, seeing how Kiva Zip works on the ground in Kenya. And I met an entrepreneur in the slum called Nairobi. A slum called Kibera, which is in Nairobi. And this entrepreneur sold candy. And she had this huge table full of candy, and she sold the candy for 1/10 of a cent. 1 shilling, which is 1/10 of 1 cent. And she was talking me through her financials. So I was saying, okay, what did you use a Kiva Zip loan for? Well, I used it to buy this hot dog maker so that I could sell hot dogs in addition to candy. And I also used the other $50 of my Kiva. So she got a $100 loan, $50 of it went to support a hot dog machine. The other $50 went to buy little candies in bulk. And she was explaining to me that a bag of candy might cost her $2. And from that $2, she would earn $4. And she was doing that she was selling about 2 bags of candy every single day. So she was spending $4 a day in inventory, and she was getting $8 a day in sales. And she is supporting her mom, her daughter, and her brother with that $4 a day. And her business has grown, or she's been doing this for 2 years. And her business has grown over the past 2 years, 200%. She was extremely articulate about the specific numbers that she was tracking on a day-to-day basis and a week-to-week basis, and how she was being strategic about, well, I can sell these hot dogs for a 200% markup, where I'm selling my candy for a 100% markup. And she was so articulate about how she was using this loan, and that $4, she was making $4 a day, and that $4 was supporting 4 people. That's really, really powerful, that someone in the biggest slum in the world, 10 square miles of slum, is selling candy for 1/10 of a cent, and she's making, $4 a day, and that $4 is supporting her mother, her daughter, and her brother. I mean, that to me is real impact, and just so exciting to see someone like that benefiting from Kiva and supporting that many people with that little money. It's really incredible.
And how would you describe, in I think it was I want to I think it was Bhutan that changed their measure of their country's success from gross national product to gross national happiness. How would you say when you encounter people in these slums and they're doing this sort of business, how would you say that their happiness compares to, say, your average worker in this country?
I mean, it's such an interesting dynamic because when you talk to these people, they seem so happy. They have this energy about them. They're not selfish. They're not rude. They're not arrogant. They're not, they embody just like the spirit of a good person, the kind of person that I want to associate myself with. And the fact that they're so positive and they're so humble and they're so happy and they're so excited about their lives. I mean, for me personally, it goes to show that the U.S. is too focused on money, and money certainly doesn't directly correlate to happiness. That's been a strong and I feel like that's a tough thing because I'm in the business of supporting people with money, yet I hate the idea of money, and money is an evil in this, from my perspective. But I also understand it's necessary to some extent, and it can create opportunity and happiness for people if leveraged in the right way. But
you bring up something I really hadn't thought about us talking about, but I think as long as you brought it up, it might be something interesting to discuss. Money, I don't think is anything. Money is a nothing. It's a representation of a thing. But money itself is nothing. So when people put all of this value on having money, they don't really understand the way money mechanics work. And just to give people a brief overview of how nothing money really is, and how when everyone's trying to make you so afraid of debt, first of all, you need to understand that the capitalist system is a debt-based system. The money that you have in your pocket is not a sign of wealth, it's a sign of debt. It's basically a promissory note saying that the good faith in the American government or whatever government is behind this piece of paper you have that gives it value. There's nothing underneath it. There's no gold standard, nothing. So if you're the American government, you're President Obama, and you need $1 billion, well, you go to the Fed and you say, listen, I need $1 billion. And the Fed says, great, print me up $1 billion in treasury bills. Or treasury notes. And then those treasury notes then go to the Fed, and the Fed gives the government $1 billion. Well, that $1 billion can now be loaned against 9 times. So where does that $1 billion come from? Literally, it's printed up. And where's the 9 times come from? It's printed up. And it's used to buy, and the people who are really wealthy understand this. And what they do when the market collapsed in 1929, and you see the arc from 1929 to 2007, 2008, where you went from this massive amounts of personal debt that people were holding, it collapsed, it sunk back down to reasonable levels, and we had great prosperity across the board in this country. Then they slowly get you hooked on that credit Jones again. You start getting debt built up. Then they yank the carpet out from under you. You're left with nothing. Then they're able to go out and buy your real stuff with this funny money. And there was a point in time in the 70s, up to the 70s, where the sort of rule of thumb or the agreed sort of gentleman's agreement or just agreement across the economic system was roughly you never had 80 times more currency in circulation than you did actual stuff in the world. We have literally zillions of dollars in circulation and only about $80 trillion in stuff in the world. So I've struggled with the money being evil thing because I definitely am on the same wavelength with you on that. But then I realized that money isn't anything except a representation of things that we'd like to have. And mostly what it is for the people who have a lot of it and manipulate it, it's power, period.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful articulation and much more thoughtful than money is evil. I completely agree with you. I think that, I'm going to use that moving forward. That's it's a beautiful articulation of it.
And what you guys are doing with Kiva and telling these stories, I mean, how do you, not just your outward observation, I think you kind of answered it, but coming from here to there and being around people who aren't living the same standard of life that you've become accustomed to, having the same amount of things, the same quality of things, however you want to look at it. How did that affect your personal happiness? Do you feel happier when you're in those countries around those people than you do here when you're back in the rat race?
No. I think that for me, it's really about consciousness and how I spend my time, how I spend my money, how I view the world. Whether that's in Kenya or the United States, in Kenya, I think it really comes down to, I'm happiest when I'm doing something that's free, when I'm, out at the beach, when I'm playing Frisbee golf, when I'm, with my girlfriend watching TV, when I'm hanging out with my dog, when I'm hanging out with my friends, having beers at my house, playing board games. I think that, the people that are, what drives happiness is being with people that you care about and doing things that make you happy. And for me, that's most of the time stuff that's free. And I think that whether you're in the U.S. or whether you're in Kenya, it really makes no difference because people are people. And if you're surrounded by good people and if you're doing things that you genuinely enjoy, that genuinely make you happy, it doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing, or it doesn't matter where you are. It matters who you're spending your time with and, doing things that, genuinely make you happy.
Yeah, and I got to tell you right now, I literally could not be any happier having this conversation with you because these conversations are so important in our life. These communications that we have with one another, they're truly sacred. When we're sharing what happiness means, when we're talking about ways to help one another, I just, that's why I'm doing this, is because this truly makes me happy to have people like yourself on who are out there in the world doing positive things, actually creating new paradigms for people to come to that eventually, hopefully, will grow large enough where we can move away from this existing paradigm entirely. What would you say, could you give us three, however many of the greatest success stories that have come out of Kiva, just life turning around stories that you've personally experienced and just gone, wow, I'm doing good things in my life?
Yeah. I'll give you one because I think this one's really powerful, and this one person made everything what I'm doing worth it, and really put it into perspective for me. And I think that there's hundreds of entrepreneurs that we've supported, thousands of entrepreneurs that we've supported that would fall into the same category. But I have one friendship, mentor. It's a beautiful soul and a beautiful person that touched my life and put this all into perspective for me. So Bill Clinton wanted to do something with Kiva. He wanted to launch Kiva in Little Rock, which makes sense. He's from Little Rock. And at the time, I was an intern at Kiva, and the CEO came to me and said, "Hey, why don't you just move to Little Rock for a month and get everything ready for this launch event?" And that was pretty daunting for me. I'd never left San Francisco since I moved to San Francisco. I didn't know anyone in Little Rock. We had no partners. We had no entrepreneurs in Little Rock. I was literally starting at square zero. And I go to Little Rock and I just start talking to people. I'm going out into the community, just talking to anybody that's willing to listen about Kiva. And I talked to this lady who actually, coincidentally has this nonprofit called Synchronicity. And her motto is like making the world more positive, which is a great, an easy in for me, wearing a Stay Positive shirt every day. And I sit down with her, and we have a really, really positive, awesome, really, great conversation. And she said, I want you to meet some people. Let's set up a round table next week. I'm going to bring some good people to the table. And a week passes, talking to a lot of farmers, a lot of artisans, a lot of entrepreneurs that are interested in Kiva Zip, getting some good momentum. But this meeting was the most powerful for me. Sitting at the table, and there's a large African-American woman sitting at the end of the table opposite me. She goes, Justin, can I say a poem before we start this meeting? I'm like, sure, go for it. She goes, this poem's called Don't Call Me Fat. She goes into, this poem about how she's fat and how society thinks she's fat and how people shouldn't call her fat. And she said it with so much passion and so much enthusiasm, and she was in her element, and it was so powerful to hear her read this poem that she had written, to the group before a meeting had ever started. And probably the best, start to any meeting I've ever had, and it was an immediate connection to this person. And, from that moment, it was, to your point, it's like, I love this person. I want to help this person. I'm going to do whatever I can to help this person. So we're talking after the event, and she says, Justin, come from a family of 17 kids. I live alone in Little Rock. I don't have any in my family here. I'm a poet. I write poems. You heard one of my poems. I hope you liked it. Things aren't going really well for me. I'm in bad health. But I think Kiva could really, really help me. Do you think you can help me? I said, yeah, June, I think we can help you. I think we can figure this out for you. And I get her going with her loan application. I'm helping her craft her story and, taking a good photo and all that stuff. And we get down to and she's looking for a $500 loan to put her poems into books so that when she goes into speaking events, she can sell books of her poems. And the risk manager at Kiva at the time says, Justin, we can't make this person a loan. Like, she's had 5 bankruptcies. She's in extreme debt. This lady's not going to pay us back. Like, we cannot make this loan. And I go to the risk manager and I'm like, hey, dude, I don't really care what you think. Like, we're making this person a loan, like or leave it. Like, if I have to spend $500 of my own money, I'll do it. Like, we are making a loan to this lady, and we are going to support this person, and we are going to, help her with Kiva. And, the battle ensued behind closed doors, and I won. And we ended up supporting her on Kiva. And at the launch event, I invited her on stage to meet Bill Clinton. And
wow,
she started crying. She started crying on the stage. She was so it was such an overwhelming amount of emotion coming out of her. And she wrote a poem about Kiva that I'd be happy to share with you. You can put it on your website. It's a powerful poem about. It articulates Kiva better than I ever could. It really talks about the community, the love, the people that embody what our program is all about. So I come back to California and share this poem with the board of directors at Kiva. And one of them's an executive at Omidyar Network, and she loved it. She said, well, we have a big conference coming up. I'm going to fly June out. Her name was June. I'm going to fly June out and invite her to speak at this conference. So fast forward 6 months. June is now being flown out to San Francisco to open a conference of thousands of people with her poem about Kiva.
Awesome. And
she gives this, she's opening the conference at this, thousands of people. And I'm there in the audience, and I'm loving every second of it. She finishes her poem, and everyone gives her a standing ovation, and she starts crying on stage.
Wow.
And she says, Kiva changed my life, Kiva changed my life, Kiva changed my life. And since then, I've had her back out to San Francisco, showed her the Golden Gate Bridge. We're still friends, but I know it's a long story, but that entrepreneur and that borrower made it all worth it for me. I put it all into perspective. Whenever I'm feeling down, I think about June. I think about that situation. I think about that impact. And I know we're having that with a lot of people around the world, but not too many people at Kiva or in the world get to feel what I felt in that moment. And it was super, super powerful. And I think it speaks to everything that Kiva represents and everything that Kiva's about, or at least what I'm about.
I can think of no better way to wrap up this show than with that story. And if you could give one more plug and then announce the song that you're going to close out the show with, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, totally. Well, at my core, I'm a metalhead. Metallica started it all for me. So this song is For Whom the Bell Tolls, my favorite Metallica song, my favorite song in general. So I'm excited for that. But if you're interested in Kiva Zip, please check us out. You can go to our website. It's kivazip.org. Again, there's 3 ways to get involved. You can apply for a loan if you're an entrepreneur and could benefit from some interest-free capital crowdfunded from a global community of people. You can also recommend an entrepreneur to Kiva Zip and sign up as a partner of ours. And everybody can do this. You can go to our website and support one of our entrepreneurs. We've got dozens of great people that are fundraising on our website right now, and you can make that impact, and you won't regret it. So go to kivazip.org and find a way to get involved.
Well, thank you, Justin, so much for joining us tonight, and definitely send me the poem, and I look forward to talking to you real soon.
Totally. Thanks, Kip. I appreciate it.